Hello, everyone. I'm Kalen North, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. We're going to be trying to do sort of a lore discussion, and for that, I have with me Kaveman from the Spirit Island Discord server. How's it going?
Good, Kaylin. I'm happy to be here. I love Spirit Island lore, so happy to talk about that with you.
Now, let's start off maybe with on this slide I've got open here. We have this big disclaimer: not official lore. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so obviously, and we're gonna dive into what we're gonna dive into here, but with a lot of Spirit Island, Eric kind of has this Tolkien-esque approach, which I love. Again, of he's kind of released bits and pieces to us of what we know, and the rest is conjecture. So when I did this survey that we'll get into again in a minute here about lore, this is what players think. And Eric has said, like, hey, I think it's cool that you guys are kind of thinking this, but just know it's not really official. Like this, none of this is endorsed by Eric or the dev team as this really happened. And so when getting Eric's permission to do this survey, he just really wanted to make sure that that was known, that this is not like he likes it, he likes the idea of it, but it's officially not official.
We're writing fan fiction basically. Like some of this is going to be some of this we're going to like take stuff from like the rule books and the spirit panels, and that's as close to official as we're going to get. A lot of it's going to be just speculation from what we've seen, and some of it's going to be straight up, oh yeah, this makes sense to me because I think this about this spirit, kind of a thing.
Yeah, personal headcanon is what
Yeah,
I call it.
personal headcanon. That's a great way to put it. So let's talk a little bit about just this video is going to be on the first reckoning. So I want to do a little bit of text from the rulebook itself. So the original Spirit Island rulebook has a little bit of history of Spirit Island, of the invaders, of the Dahan, of the spirits, and they talk a little bit about the first reckoning, but in pretty vague terms. So under the section the Dahan were the first humans on Spirit Island. They immigrated centuries ago in a time when ocean's hungry grasp prowled nearby waters less frequently. Their lore spoke of spirits, and they expected their new home would have some, but were greatly surprised by the spirits' numbers, vitality, and intensity of manifestation. Some mistook the greater spirits for gods. The Dahan's agriculture and animals brought blight to the land and conflict with the spirits, triggering the First Reckoning. The Dahan capitulated quickly, and an accord was reached. The spirits would transform crops and animals to be more compatible with the ecosystem. The Dahan would change their methods of farming and seek counsel from friendlier spirits. The two became neighbors, though unequal. The Dahan were reliant on and obligated to the spirits. Now, then, there's also a little bit on the Second Reckoning, which sort of refers back to it. Where they say, many generations later came the Second Reckoning, when the Dahan discovered their advisors and protectors had not been entirely candid with them, and the power balance between Dahan and spirits evened out. And then the rulebook goes on to say, but that is another story, and that is also not going to be the focus of our video today. But suffice it to say that the Dahan no longer view the spirits as gods. So that's, I think, about what we know about the First Reckoning. Do you have more thoughts on it than that?
I mean, it's a really good thing. I think it brings up some good points. And as far as differences, right, from kind of what we're seeing now, because the big thing that I've always thought with the First Reckoning is why do the spirits essentially wipe out the invaders completely and force them out versus kind of the Dahan? And so we get a couple key differences. First off, we can kind of assume on the way we play the game that the invaders have no idea that the spirits exist. Like that's a seemingly new concept for them, or at least newer. The Dahan, they knew the spirits would be there. They just didn't expect so many.
Yeah.
So that's a very interesting thing to me, is that there's this kind of difference between what the Dahan knew and what the spirits knew. But other than that, the arrival of the Dahan, we really know nothing else about.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's the Dahan did in a sense colonize the island. They were the first humans there, of course, but they had this more, well, yeah, they capitulated quickly and an accord was reached. So they actually came to some terms with the spirits rather than just ignoring them and pushing forward on their own.
Right, and we can assume, again, a word I'm probably going to use a lot here, that they already had spirit speakers of some kind. right? Because they come from a land, they came from a land with spirits. So my personal head canon here is that where they came from, they had kind of they knew spirits existed. They'd been able to maybe been able to talk to some of these spirits to some extent, and the spirits gave them kind of like, but they were separated. Like the spirits dwell over here because there's fewer of them, and we dwell over here. So the spirits don't care that we're blighting the land and kind of doing this thing. Then they come to Spirit Island. Suddenly, the practices are the same, but there's spirits everywhere.
Yeah.
And so there's more caring, and that's where the conflict comes from, in my head.
Yeah, and I think also not just like quantity of spirits, but also like size and power of spirits is the idea that a spirit like river surges in sunlight would be powerful enough to interact with the Dahan on their time scale, and so big yet that it could have major effect. It could cause these massive floods. That kind of
That's
thing is probably not something they would have encountered, we think, on a previous island that they lived on.
that's true. And it does talk about how, some of the larger spirits, the Dahan, literally when they encounter them, they think they're gods. Right.
Yeah.
So that's obviously very different. Like working with, a small spirit on a different island, then all of a sudden you see this spirit, this of size and immensity you've never seen, and you think it's a god. That's going to be a very different interaction.
Now, this actually reminds me of something. Like I really like one of the things I really like about this game is that the spirits are very explicitly not meant to be gods or like divine beings in some way. And something that's happened on the Discord that I don't know if I can point to like a particular reference for it other than maybe to find that chat message was that the Dahan supposedly believe in gods that are not the spirits. Like they have their own religions in which the spirits may exist, but they are not the divine beings.
Right.
And I don't want to talk about that too much because especially with the hypothetical Dahan expansion that Eric is supposedly working on, he's probably revisiting a lot of the Dahan lore, and so we really don't know what's going on with that, and we may learn about it when that comes out, hopefully.
Well,
But
it's
yeah,
funny you
I'm sorry.
bring that up. Sorry, because you triggered me. I was literally thinking about this like 2 nights ago with the Dahan expansion, and it'd have to be a very almost like standalone, or it'd have to really shake stuff up, but it'd be really interesting to see, or maybe even like a custom content thing of a first reckoning Dahan adversary.
Ooh, that would be interesting. I feel like
Like obviously it would have to like
yeah.
it would have to change so much because you're not fully destroying the Dahan. There'd have to be some way to kind of have this mitigated middle ground of winning, or maybe even like you can only win via a fear victory. Like if you kill them all, you lose stipulation. But I was like I said, it's not something that I would. Okay, but I was thinking about that, like because there was a first reckoning at one point. The Dahans were an adversary. It
Yeah,
just had
yeah.
popped in my head.
No, I think that makes sense. I think it'd be really difficult to pull off because you have, for example, Thunder Speaker and Hearth Vigil in the game, and like how do they work if the Dahan are the adversary?
You just win.
Yeah, you just win. Okay, well we've made an accord. We're good. All right. But yeah, with that, let's talk. Let's get back to the first reckoning a little bit. So you put out this poll on Reddit and Discord and possibly other places. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I did just put it out on Reddit and Discord, and really what I wanted to know is, again, as we've talked about, the Dahan come, they're blighting the island, and the spirits are kind of in this deciding what to do situation. Some of them, like we're assuming it's kind of like what we're playing now. Some of they were actively fighting against the Dahan, maybe. There was the Dahan were ravaging, the spirits were defending. So I thought in this first reckoning, with all the spirits in the game, what does the community as a whole kind of think? Who took whose side? You know, which spirits were like, yeah, I like these Dahan, let's let them stay. Which spirits were kind of like, I don't care, and which spirits were actively trying to push them out. And I just wanted to see, because again, I've thought about this with each and individual spirit myself personally, because I love lore, but I wanted to see kind of what the community as a whole thought and where the community as a whole kind of thought the spirits fell. And so I made this poll.
All right. So I've got here sort of a breakdown that you put together of sort of where the different spirits would have fallen on that.
Yeah,
Um,
and this first slide was kind of the biggest shock. I really expected blue to be a lot bigger, to be honest.
yeah, and just to clarify, what do you mean by with on this side versus against?
So with versus against. So essentially, I'm thinking, the Dahan and the spirits start going with it. Are you with the spirits? Meaning, do you support, like, from the get go, essentially keeping them alive, keeping them on the island? We can work with them. Against is, we're thinking like your ocean's hungry grasp, right? Where it's like, no, I don't care. I don't want them. Like, I'm gonna kill the Dahan. I don't want them here.
Yeah,
Or get them off the island in some way. I don't care how you do it. And then, of course, the neutral is your, like, I'm a spirit. I could take it or leave it. The blight doesn't, I'm not bothered by this.
they're blighting that river over there. My river is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So then we have sort of a list out of which spirits the community seemed to think would side with the Dahan.
yeah, and
Yeah, go for it.
again, kind of some of the names definitely pop out, and then some of them. I guess the one big one that surprised me is shadows on this one, to be honest.
Okay.
And I thought there'd be more. Actually, shadows and eyes are kind of the two that stick out to me as a little shocking. But
Yeah, I'm actually a little bit surprised at I guess the other thing is that in the poll that you put together, you had not just with, against, and neutral. You also had sort of an entry for like other weird thing that might have been going on that would have stopped them from participating at all, or they would have done something strange as a result.
yeah, so I did have other, and then when I went through and synthesized the data, because some people put other and it was actual and other thing, and then some people put like other, but really it was more of just like a clarifying answer of what they thought. So, like, like for example, Thunder Speaker, which when we get into the pie graphs, you'll see like a big chunk of that is like a lot of people said Thunder Speaker was still trapped as Bright Thunder roars, you
Yeah.
know. But then for like River Surges in Sunlight, like some people put like other, this guy loves the Dahan,
Oh,
right? Which
sure. Yeah.
clearly is just a with answer in a different form. So those are kind of separated and tucked into, like, if it's something like that, I just tucked it into the right spot.
Yeah. Okay. Um. So then let's check on the neutral ones. This one's a bigger list.
Yeah.
This was the biggest category actually. Is players seem to think that the majority of the spirits that we play as would have actually just sort of been indifferent to the conflict.
Yeah, a lot of that's yeah, a lot of players just kind of thought with this neutrality that I didn't expect. I really expected more divisive of like, here's like, I expected a bigger like line drawn in the sand between spirits and, you know, with and against. You'll see on this list, Bringer of Dreams and Nightmares is asterisk. It was actually like right there. It was like one result away from being considered against, like 1% away from being considered against. And then same thing with Shifting. Shifting was neutral, but was very, very right there for being with the spirits. So those two were very close per the community of actually taking a side.
Yeah. Okay. But then there's a lot of these other ones. I mean, you've got some of the more abstract spirits like Starlight and Fractured. Well, actually, Starlight, I think lore wise, might not have, because Starlight is theoretically arriving around when the invaders arrive, isn't it? Or maybe I'm mixing that up. I don't know.
I mean, Starlight it's definitely a newer spirit. And again, as we go, we can talk. I figure we can talk more about each spirit as we kind of go through the actual pie charts of
Yeah.
the spirits. But it's a newer spirit. I think we have here a lot of the, like you said, abstract ones. We have a lot of the just abstract, stubborn, like dances. Obviously, it's got people to dance with. It doesn't care.
It likes the patterns they make, whether they're burning the land or not. And then,
Yeah.
but
So
then you've also got like serpent slumbering beneath the island, who's like, "What?
yeah,
I don't care about this. This is going to be resolved by the time I open my eyes."
yeah, exactly. You know. So
All right, and then we've got spirits decided against the Dahan per the community.
for the community, um, a lot of these just kind of make sense. Like
Yeah, I
um,
mean, like Keeper of the Forbidden Wilds, you're kind of like, yeah, it's the get off my lawn spirit. It still doesn't get along with the Han very well.
yeah, and I think Keeper's probably the one like that I disagree with the most on a personal level. I'm a big, like, I don't want to say keeper apologist. I'm a big keeper defender,
Okay.
right? A lot of people, a lot of the community that I've talked to has this view of like keeper is this spirit that's gonna, murder Dahan on sight. Um, and if you look at the lore, to me, keeper is tasked with guarding this forest. And as long as you're being respectful, not going past the boundary, I don't think Keeper has anything personally against the spirits. Like he's just a guy. He's a guard dog with a job to do.
Yeah, they're not like they don't have a grudge against the Dahan. They're just like, no, this is my line in the sand. You cross
Yeah,
it, that's a problem. You don't cross it, we're good.
yeah. So and I think so. I think personally, Keeper gets this bad rap in the community.
It's
But
just towering wrath. Anything that says destroy all Dahan, makes us worried about them.
yeah,
Um, yeah. Anyway, all right. So then I think next up we have sort of these pie charts. Actually, you have so I like also so even just looking at this first one already with devouring teeth, we've got 11% of voters said not around yet.
yeah, and it's an interesting. I mean, it's a newer spirit compared to some of the spirits. Um, it says like it is said before that it might be it like it was a tiny spirit. It took a bite out of Ember-eyed Behemoth, obviously, and then that
It grew much
kind of gave
bigger.
it like
Yeah.
yeah, it gave it a little injection, and it kind of popped up as a bigger spirit. Um, so I think a lot of spirits are assuming, or a lot of players are maybe assuming at the time, or these players are assuming at the time that Dahan arrived, it still hasn't taken that chomp out of Ember-eyed Behemoth. It's still too small to really interact with the Dahan, which
Yeah.
is possible. It doesn't specifically say when this happened, whether it happened before the Dahan arrived or after the Dahan arrived. Like all we know is it's learn to avoid conflict with them. That could have happened. That learning could happen after the Great Reckoning. Entirely possible.
Yeah. And
Um,
there's something else here that I mean, just looking at all four of these are all Horizon spirits, and these ones plus Sunbright Whirlwind. There is some Horizons almost takes place on like a different island in some ways than the main game of Spirit Island. Like there's discussion of that, I think, in either I can't remember if it's in the Horizons rulebook or if it was in like the crowdfunding stuff about it. Or was the crowdfunding for Nature Incarnate? I don't remember. But the idea that Horizons of Spirit Island is like, oh, that's actually the next island over that also has spirits, and you might then ask things like, why, how did Devouring Teeth get a chunk of Ember-eyed Behemoth if they're on different islands? And that's like, stories don't need to agree to both be true. We're,
yeah, exactly.
but
Yeah, no, it's kind of yeah. The Horizons islands can kind of be considered kind of the Isla Sorna B type thing from Jurassic Park, where it could theoretically be an island over. And I mean, to me, that's never really clicked. I know that that's there and that is a thing. To me, I mean, it's using the same island boards. Like, what are the odds if we have two islands that are geographically similar? And, you know, so it's, um, I again, to me, I don't like that theory, but I do acknowledge that it is a theory and it is definitely 100% possible. So in which case, if that were true, then the first reckoning we're kind of talking about, none of these spirits are there.
Yeah.
So
So, assuming that they were involved in some way, I think there is definitely. I mean, we definitely have this like, devouring teeth is against. Eyes watch is very clearly put with. I think because eyes watch from the trees is so tied to the Dahan mechanically in the present day, and
yeah,
then
I mean,
or go on.
which is again, sorry to interrupt,
No,
Kalen.
no, no, no. Go ahead.
Um, it's one of the few ones where like the first reckoning is actually mentioned on the panel, which is kind of cool. But all it says is that it was a source of dread to them. And then
Okay.
now like the Dahan are kind of used to it, which is an interesting like how does one interpret a source of dread during the first reckoning? Is it just like because it could have been like, hey, I'm like whispering in your ear trying to help you, and that's just scaring the Dahan, but he's really with them. Or was it against them, and that's why they dreaded hearing those whispers?
Yeah.
You know,
Are they
so
are they playing a fear producing card, or are they playing a defend card, or what are they doing? Who knows?
yeah. So
All right, and then let's see. We've got mud and stone, or not stone, mud and heat. I always call rising heat stone by accident, and then think, oh right, stone's unyielding defiance is also in the game. But mud and heat, both communities had majorities thinking that these two would have remained neutral. Do you have more thoughts on those two in particular, or either one of them?
um I mean mud makes sense. They both make sense. Heat kind of like Heat doesn't understand the Dahan, but the Dahan make pretty patterns. So,
Yeah,
he's
they
like,
they
I
they,
don't
they can get along, but they can also like just not care about each other.
I mean, the one thing I would say about Heat is that we do say that it doesn't understand why the Dahan don't like being like burned alive from the intense heat. So there could have been definitely like some of that going on in the first reckoning, but I don't think it would have been with malice.
Okay. Okay. I mean, yeah, it's a spirit of the desert and of high temperatures, and
Yeah,
it's gonna do things that are not conducive to human health without thinking about it.
yeah,
All right. Let's check out. Okay, so then we've got Sunbright Whirlwind, the last Horizon spirit. Majority of the community thought they would be with, and barely anyone said against for this one. It's mostly with, and then a good chunk of neutrals.
yeah. I think Sunbright Whirlwind. I mean, Sunbright Whirlwind kind of has that hyper puppy, hyper kid energy. Um, you know, it likes to, obviously it likes to spread out. It likes to, but I think personally, it's always seemed to me to be just a very aloof spirit that isn't gonna care so much. Like it's like, okay, there's some blight, we can spread out. We'll be fine. We got this, guys. Um, that's kind of how I've always seen it. You know, it's just like the spirit that's always like I feel like nothing gets it down, so it's just always happy.
A spirit of joy and enjoyment in the wind and the sun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the spirit panel does specifically say it can get upset. I don't see it personally.
I mean, it makes tornadoes occasionally, right? Or something.
Yeah, like it can do upsetty things. Um, but yeah, so that's Sunbright. Yeah,
All right.
I think I said well, where we're going river next.
Yeah, let's go river. Let's talk, so we got the low complexities from the base game, I think, coming up here.
Yeah, I think Vital got put like somewhere far down the slideshow for
Oh
some
no, poor
reason,
Vital.
but um,
All right, but river. This one is dramatically in favor of supporting the Dahan, at least
yeah.
according to the community. And yeah,
I mean, how do you feel about this one, Kaylin? Do you agree with this?
I don't know that I do actually. Like, I think this is one where like river, I think in the modern day is very very like in accord with the Dahan, but river's also very big on this whole like, oh, people are here, I'm going to flood them with the invaders. And I actually think river would have been one of the big like concentrate the Dahan up so that Bringer or someone can make their fear farm and terrify the Dahan early on into submission.
Yeah,
But I mean, I get it. River's Bounty is a very influential card. This is one of the first spirits a lot of us ever encounter, and it's the most Dahan friendly, I think, of the first four, like the four low complexities. So this makes sense to me that this is where the community would go. I don't know that I personally agree with it.
yeah, no, I mean, I kind of think I agree with maybe a neutral standpoint here. I with you, I see where the community's coming from, because in the modern day, it is a very Dahan friendly spirit. Of course, probably one of the most. I mean, we have Travel River, right, where
Yeah,
like your special ability is just let me shuttle the Dahan around on myself, basically.
yeah. Well, and then and you've got Haven River
You got
that
Haven
builds these
River.
safe zones for the Dahan and defends them against the invaders. Like River definitely is very harmonious with the Dahan in the present day for sure. And
I mean, I
that
think
could
that
be
what I could. You finish. I'll let you
oh,
finish.
and that could go back all the way to First Reckoning. I'm not sure.
I was gonna say, I'm not sure that it necessarily. I'm not gonna say. I definitely say it wasn't probably against the Dawn. I can say I can rule that out. What I'll say is it may be one of the spirits that started the ending of the first reckoning the soonest, right? Like some of the first, one of the first spirits to be in communication with them,
Sure.
whether it was hostile at first or not. I think it was definitely one of the spirits that bridged the path to
Yeah.
permanent Dahan peace.
More of a mediator, negotiator kind of a spirit that comes in and ends the conflict as opposed to regardless of where it was at the beginning.
Yeah.
Okay. Then let's talk lightning then.
Yeah. So big neutral slash against. This is of the kind of four base game low complexity spirits. The community seems to think that Dahan was the most against them, and they're not represented here. I tucked these in. This is one of the ones where I kind of tucked these into the neutral category. There was a lot of people that said, instead of picking with, against, or neutral, they said, you know, it doesn't care that it's the Dahan. It's just enjoying blowing up the buildings,
That's kind
basically.
of interesting. I feel like that's not the vibe I get from Lightning. Maybe I need to go and like reread their lore panel quick. It's one where I feel like Lightning doesn't take joy in destruction so much as it is so on its spirit panel talks about it spends much of its time resting in quiet, waking up to dance through the night sky when the winds blow strong. Like it's one where I don't think that Lightning is just running around smashing things or blowing things up the way that maybe I don't know. I think a volcano is something that takes joy in destruction and explosion. Although that also has long periods of dormancy as well. So maybe that's unfair to volcano.
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting thing, and I kind of tend to agree with that. I don't think lightning's just kind of flying around blowing up parts of the like zapping parts of the island. Um, I think I mean in personally I think that like at lightning and dances with earthquakes get together and just kind of rock out, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
But but that's what I mean. But it's again, this is the point is what does the community think, and that was a part. Like I did get several answers of that kind of lightning's just at least back then going around just kind of enjoying destroying the huts
yeah,
was something that they said, not antagonistically. They were just like, cool, lightning, let's blow stuff up.
yeah.
So
And it may have been doing that to other spirits before the Dahan got there. In that take, I assume.
yeah, exactly. It could have just, I mean, yeah, it could have been like, hey, let me zap that puddle and see if I can evaporate it all at once. Who knows what lightning was doing back then?
Yeah, yeah. Um, then next spirit, shadows flicker like flame. We've got pretty solid majority of width here. Um, which interests me. I feel like again this is kind of a Modern day, we have something like Favors Called Due, where clearly Shadows has done things to save the Dahan in the past. And then the question just is sort of how far back does that extend? Does that extend all the way to the First Reckoning, or is this mostly from when like Shadows was doing its tangle with Relentless Gaze?
Well, I think that's kind of one of the big things, and here you can see actually on this one we have the first green slice here, which was a very small percentage of people. It was only 1.1% of people who took the survey, but there was a small chunk of people that said, I was actually one of those people in this survey, that it possibly didn't exist yet, right? Because we have this kind of teased lore of Breath of Darkness down your spine being shadows. And so it's possible that when the spirits arrive, shadows is just Breath of Darkness down your spine.
And so there's a split off maybe later on.
Right. And again, this is where personal headcanon comes in. This is one that I've thought about a lot. In my personal headcanon, we obviously know Sun, we have Relentless Gaze of the Sun. He does battle at some point after the Dahan are there. It's kind of assumed that it's after the Dahan are there with 3 spirits. Shadows being one of them, 2 other unnamed spirits. We don't have their names. 2 of those spirits, the unnamed ones, are just straight up destroyed, and Shadows and Sun are both weaker. So the way I interpret things personally is that it was Breath of Darkness down your spine doing that after the battle emerges as Shadows.
Okay. Yeah. That's interesting. And I feel like that's a I mean, again, this is sort of like fan headcanon theories. The
That's
idea,
my fan fiction.
yeah. No. I was going to just say that the idea that Breath of Darkness down your spine is an aspect of Shadows, or Shadows is an aspect of Breath of Darkness down your spine, and just how does that connect with like which one was their win? You know, how do both of them coexist in the present day? Sometimes how do they we have this idea that spirits can be split into other spirits that comes from Wandering Voice Keen's delirium. The idea that it's the voice of calls all living things to die, but not like its own. It was part of that bigger spirit at one point. So maybe not just Breath of Darkness down your spine was the one who fought Relentless Gaze of the Sun, but that there was a previous spirit that split into both Breath of Darkness down your spine and Shadows Flicker like Flame.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the cool thing about Spirit Island is all of that and none of that can be true.
Yes. All right. So you ready for the?
But,
sorry.
Yeah.
More on Shadows, or are you ready for the next page?
Oh yeah, we can move on.
there's a lot of spirits, so I want to try and make sure we can get through them all.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, Rampant Green. Now this is a favorite of yours.
I say I am, for those of you who don't know, I am in the Discord community, kind of known as the consummate. I am the rampant spread a green player guy. It's basically all I play. I get made fun of it for it a little bit, but
we make fun of you as a friend. we very much appreciate that you're playing green.
It is all done in good faith. The Discord community, I made a post about this the other night. Actually, the Discord community is really a great, wholesome place. It's all done in good fun. But I mean, I have to agree. I have to agree with kind of what is said. As far as it being neutral, I think that I was a little surprised to see so much against, to be honest. I've never gotten the green. Green, part of why I fell in love with green, actually, I mean, I do enjoy the mechanics. I'm used to the mechanics, but like I've always loved green's lore. Green, to me, you know, is this, and the panel speaks on this. It's this like innocent, exuberant, like, hey guys, I'm here. It's the kid running in and doing a belly flop on the parents, Christmas morning, like, hey, I'm here. Let's get up. Let's play,
Yeah.
And obviously, Green's idea of doing that is, exploding vegetation everywhere, which is very inconvenient for the Dahan, but it doesn't understand that. It's just like, hey, like we're having fun,
Yeah.
And so I think that if it kind of had that same attitude during the first reckoning of just like, hey, let's go see these new people and blow up their crops and make them Like, look what I can do. The Dahan are definitely still not necessarily going to be happy with that.
No, no. Oh, but yeah, no, I get that a lot. Yeah. The panel explicitly says it's not unfriendly to the Dahan, but its idea of a good time is to smother their buildings in all manner of inconvenient greenery, and its notion of help transforms careful cultivated areas into overgrown thickets. So, even in the present day, it's not supportive of the Dahan so much as it is just, hey, you're fun things to play with. I'm a puppy and I'm going to jump on you.
Yeah. And one thing to point out with green too is, and it's from the extent of the design lore, and that's where it actually talks about like the kid doing the belly flop. It's actually in the lore, but it does specifically say like for all that it's ancient and primal, it loves life and to honor life. So while it might not be with them, or it might not even like with them, could be as much as standing up against the other spirits. Like it might say like, look, you guys do what you want, but I think these things are cool. They're alive. I'm enjoying them. You know.
Yeah.
So, Thunder Speaker. This is one of
Yeah.
the big ones.
Yeah.
Um, so huge green pie chart here that makes sense actually. So a lot of people say obviously Thunder Speaker is with the Dahan. They're one of like the two main Dahan spirits that checks out. But you have this big chunk of the community that says, Thunder Speaker is still trapped
Yeah.
because we know from the lore it was Bright Thunder Roars was trapped, and then later when it is freed by the Dahan, um, is freed by the Dahan, and that's when it kind of renamed it, became Thunder Speaker, and it bound itself to aid the Dahan until a generation had passed for every year of its imprisonment.
Yeah. Which we don't know
So
how long it was imprisoned, but we're guessing probably a very long time.
yeah, probably a very, I mean, it's got to be a very long time.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
so
I'm pretty solidly in the still trapped category for this one. I think that Thunder Speaker, while they probably would have been a pro Dahan spirit in the first or and probably in the second reckoning maybe. I definitely imagine in my head that no, they weren't there yet, and maybe that's part of why they're able to be so friendly with the Dahan is they didn't go through the first reckoning. They didn't have this period of great conflict early on.
yeah, so for me, there's two paths here that I kind of bounce back between. We know Bright Thunder Roars traps Thunder Speaker, so there's the option that you kind of laid out of the like they're still trapped after the first reckoning. That Han, untrapped them. They're like, hey, I don't know what you are, but you saved me. The other option is the first reckoning is going on, the Dahan free mid reckoning, and then that's kind of a turning point. Now they've
Ooh.
got a big ally. Because Thunder Spear's like, I don't care they're new, I don't care they're blighting the island, right? I care that they helped me, and now they've got their first big ally. Or one of their first big allies. Like maybe now River's turned. Maybe now they've got Thunder Speaker. You know, I mean, if you really wanted to get super fan fiction, you could even say like maybe they had started to win over other spirits, and with one of those spirits told them where to find this place or told them the story of Bright Thunder Roars. Right? Did they
Yeah.
find it on accident? Were they told? Who knows? Right? There's lots of. It's just an alternate theory that I'm throwing out there.
I this
So
I wonder now. This is forming some new headcanon for me about maybe what if Bright Thunder Roars was released and became the Thunder Speaker during the second reckoning as opposed to
it,
during the first or before the first.
it could be right, and
Yeah.
and that's another path that I've thought about for the second reckoning. Right? Is who knows? I mean, we don't know for all we know, right? We know, and we're getting a little second reckoning here, but
Sorry.
it's fine. For all we know, Bright Thunder Roars is still on the island, right? We like Trickster, like well, I'm gonna save this because we might do a video on the second reckoning. I'm gonna save this story for a second reckoning thing.
Okay.
We'll talk about that then.
But just to clarify, you're still talking about like another aspect split of Thunderspeaker and Bright Thunder Roar splitting from the same,
Well, no,
or
I'm talking about like there is very good potential head canon that I have thought
okay.
about in the past regarding kind of what you just said of Thunder Speaker and the Second Reckoning.
Okay, well, yeah, let's save that then.
Yeah.
I, I,
So
I look forward to hearing it. I'm sure we're
yeah,
going to try and do this again.
it's
So
a second. Let's focus on the first reckoning for this.
yeah, should we move on to Bringer then? Talk
Yeah,
about
let's move on to Bringer.
good old dreams and nightmares.
So again, this is another one where I tucked in a lot of there was a lot of individual neutral responses that said, they didn't just click neutral, they said didn't care that it was Dahan, just happy to have something to bring dreams and nightmares to.
Yeah. Now
So
that's interesting to me because my memory of dreams and nightmares is that they're supposed to be not just dreams and nightmares for like humans, but dreams and nightmares for spirits. Is that
yes,
spirits dream sometimes, and or some spirits at least dream, and Bringer is still this alien Sandman type thing that exists for the spirits as well as the humans. Is the spirits don't understand Bringer much better than the humans understand it.
yeah, exactly. It talks the lore panel. You're right. The lore panel does talk about how it basically is that's the only way it communicates is through dreams. So it brings dreams to spirits. It brings dreams to Dahan. Now, Dahan and humans are going to interpret those dreams as like, whoa, that was a weird dream. A spirit might be more readily recognizing that it is, in fact, communication. Um, but yeah, so really, it could have just been talking to the Dahan, and they're just like, oh, whoops, it was a nightmare or it was a dream.
Yeah.
We also have to think, you know, Bringer of Dreams and Nightmares is one of the spirits that is probably we're seeing a specific aspect in game. We're seeing it's fighting the invaders aspect, right? It's bringing more nightmares and more fear because it's fighting invaders. It might have brought more nightmares and fear when it was during the first reckoning because it was doing the same with the Han, but we don't really know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think that makes sense. I think it's just I mean this is one where I it's so very close between neutral and against, and I so very solidly feel like they would have been neutral that like I'm just a little biased regardless of the result that the community came up with.
yeah, well, and that's the fun thing about this is no matter what the community as a whole thinks, everyone's still entitled to
Yeah,
their own
yeah.
opinion and their own headcanon. So
And when you're playing your game of Spirit Island, that is your canon temporarily. Like
yeah,
you're writing the history of Spirit Island and how that spirit interacts with it. Now, that's not going to be the history for everyone else, hence it's not actual canon, but
yeah.
it's yeah.
I think no one is surprised by Ocean's Hungry Grasp.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised that 3.4% said with.
That
That's a little surprising.
yeah, that is a little surprising. I mean, Ocean is kind of a jerk. He'll murder Dahan that come too close to this day.
Yeah.
So
Or
not
that
really
don't appease it
surprised.
properly kind of a thing. I mean,
Yeah, as long as they, yeah. Well, I mean, even then, it talks about like they appease it, and they still send like 3 or 4 boats or whatever, so that when like 2 of them are inevitably still eaten, people come back alive.
is it that bad? I thought it was a little more passable than that, but maybe I'm misremembering.
It's, I mean, it talks about like they bring a spirit speaker. Okay. They always involve all these trade trips take the cooperation of several families and always involve at least 2 spirit speakers. That way, even if one perishes abroad, the expedition will still be able to get home.
Yeah.
So I guess it doesn't explicitly say, but it kind of implies that Ocean's still kind of eating one of them.
Yeah. That I mean the way I read that was more of a you're traveling to another island, and if one of your crew members accidentally dies of like getting sick or something, the rest of you can get home because you can still appease Ocean. Whereas if the only person who could talk to Ocean died while you were on your trip, you're never getting back.
Okay, so that's a very, very fair way to look at it. I always I have a a bias towards. I mean, I love Ocean as a spirit. I enjoy thinking of this like kind of just jerk spirit that's on the edges of the island that's going to eat everyone. So I guess it's just my head canon that like, hey, you brought me this cool, offering. That's great. I'm still eating half of you. Like your survival rate just went up to 50% instead of,
Is that a zero?
0%.
Yep, yep. Uh, I don't know. I will note. I actually now I've got the wiki open and I'm looking at the design lore stuff on Ocean, and they actually say the seas around Spirit Island were not always so dangerous as they now are. When the Dahan's ancestors first arrived, the journey was no more or less perilous than any other voyage between islands. But then, several centuries ago, between the Second Reckoning and the rise of the Spirit Speakers, Ocean's hungry grasp arrived in the nearby waters. Which I had not read that piece of design lore before or in a long time, but now I'm suddenly wondering, oh wait, maybe Ocean just wasn't even there at the time.
I say it's been a long time since I've read, because I have read all the lore word for word. Um, and actually, it's been a long time since I've read that as well. And I guess maybe because it had been a long time, I knew that Ocean wasn't always as prominent, but I guess I had forgotten that it wasn't always like even there.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's kind of, and it may be that I mean, Ocean is a very tidal spirit. It's very built into these cycles, and it may be that Ocean wanders from island to island to island,
yeah,
and so it's sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. But yeah,
I would say based on rereading the lore, I would say probably that me personally would say Ocean wasn't there at that time then.
yeah. Now, and this is the design lore section, so I believe this is stuff that was taken from the original crowdfunding promo stuff when they were first making the game. So it's not like on the Spirit panel itself.
Right.
So this is one where I'm a little less sure about how much I give it like full canon status, if that makes sense. But
Yeah, I mean design lore changes a lot.
exactly.
So,
So who knows? But yeah, I mean,
all
I
right,
think I think if Ocean was there against the Dahan makes sense.
yes, if Ocean was there, he was definitely. Well, I mean, I can see. So I guess the last thing I can see why there's this big neutral chunk of, again, like Ocean just hates everybody and everything. Like, it chases off smaller spirits. Uh, it eats invaders. It eats Dahan. So I think that neutral pie chunk is saying like it's gonna murder the Dahan, but it's not necessarily murdering them because it cares that they're there. It's just murdering them because they're nearby.
Yeah, it's eating them.
So
It's a predator
yeah,
consuming food. It doesn't. There's not like a moral judgment necessarily that it's trying to make about I want to go to war with you. There's more of a you are food and I am predator.
yeah. So all right,
All right,
we
let's.
want to.
I gotta switch my tabs here quick. Keeper of the Forbidden Wilds. I think we alluded to this earlier. This is ridiculously against in the fan poll, and you had some thoughts about that not being the case.
Yeah. So um, it's one of those things where, again, I don't think Keeper is necessarily against the Dahan. I think that Keeper, like I said, someone said to Keeper at some point, "Hey, guard this grove or guard this forest, guard these wilds." And Dahan can walk by, even wave by, like in my mind, like you could go to the edge of the wilds, have a nice little chat with Keeper and move on. It's only when you try to cross that threshold, and even then, to me, Keeper's gonna say like, "Hey, nope, back up." And then if you keep pushing it, yeah, you're gonna face the consequences. So now, obviously, if Dahan are new, they're not used to speaking to these new spirits. They're going to wander in there and get killed, which is going to look like Keepers against the Dahan. But to me, Keeper is a very neutral spirit. Like as long as you're not going in the wrong spot, he's perfectly fine. They're perfectly happy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I mean, again, I think that we see Towering Wrath and we see Keeper in the game expanding out of its sacred areas, maybe, and or spreading its sacred what areas it considers it to be important to keep untouched. And I think that that just gives a different sense because of how the invaders interact with the island, of how maybe aggressive Keeper is. Whereas if Keeper is this very passive spirit, unless you go onto its land, and then the invaders are just so egregious in their invasion that Keeper's like, nah, I gotta spread out.
yeah,
That gives a different vibe than maybe how they interacted with the Dahan in the first Reckoning.
yeah, it gives a different vibe. I mean, there's things that and again, we don't can't really know. I mean, we obviously, like you say, we have Towering Wrath, right, which is going to destroy all the Dahan. But you also have um, Forbidden Ground, right? When you create a sacred site, push all the Dahan from the land,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
when he's first making these no treadable areas, you notice it's not when you make a sacred site, kill or destroy all the Dahan.
No.
It's push the Dahan,
Yeah. Yeah.
which to me is saying like he wants to give the Dahan as much of a chance as they can.
Yeah.
So that's where I get, again, that's just a me thing. I can see why the community thinks the way they do about Keeper.
Yeah.
I see it.
It's yeah, it makes sense. I think. I like both of those make sense, and again, I don't think that these need to agree to both. I mean, certainly one is the headcanon for you, and one is the headcanon for other people, and like
Right.
I don't think that there's a problem with either of those. I think they're both consistent with what we have been told about the spirit.
Yeah.
Then the other branch and claw spirit, we've got Sharp Fangs behind the leaves. This is one where I think I have a very different headcanon than the community.
Okay, I'm interested to hear your head canon then. Like for
I
sure.
so I was talking a little bit with on when we were on Ocean a little bit ago about this idea of predator and food. That I don't think there's a moral judgment necessarily in the idea of a hunter seeking its prey. And Sharp Fangs behind the leaves to me is the hunt, is the essence of the hunt given spiritual form. And so I actually very much think Sharp Fangs would be in this neutral category, whereas the community is mostly got against the Dahan. Whereas I think they would have been like, oh, they're more prey. I don't care about them coming or not coming here. I just am going to hunt them the same either way. And then modern day Sharp Fangs, of course, is a little more in harmony with the Dahan. After like there's a bit about a pair of twins helping trap it and it gaining some respect for the Dahan.
Yeah.
But
Well, yeah, and not so yeah, to talk on a little bit what you said. I do agree with you. First off, that Sharp Fangs it's the predator of Spirit Island. It hunts to hunt. We know that we have the brother and sister twins kind of put it in its place a little bit. And so now it ignores the Dahan or doesn't hunt them as actively. I don't know that it fully ignores them. We know it doesn't talk to the Dahan ever.
I mean,
It's from the
does it
official.
talk to anyone? I don't know. I feel like Sharp Fangs is one of those that I wouldn't expect to communicate with anything
Yeah, and I
other than
don't. We don't
beasts.
know if it talks to anyone or not. Um, but we know for a fact that it doesn't bother talking with the Han. It does say it will hunt them, but it mostly just ignores them. I agree with you. I think that it was just like I voted neutral in this category personally when I did my own uh, test here because I agree. I think that it's just a hunter and it hunted the Han if they were there and other animals if they were there or who knows.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think this is again one where I see why the community response is what it is, and I just my head's in a different spot, and that's okay.
Yeah, part of
Um,
the wildfire.
yeah. Now this one I have strong opinions on again, but that's just because of what's like written on the spirit panel.
So yeah, again, there's this very, very tiny sliver of did not exist yet, which I did include. Which I, I so anyone, I don't want to say they're wrong, right? Anyone's headcanon, like your headcanon is your headcanon, that's valid. People can rewrite it. It does say on the spirit panel or extended lore. I don't know if it
No, it's on the
is
spirit panel.
okay. I say it does say on the spirit panel. It was there
Yeah, it
since
says
before the Dahan.
but has existed on the island since long before the Dahan arrived.
Yeah. So it was there according to official lore. It was there. That is one part of this that is official lore. Is it was there. Um.
Yeah. And then the other part for me on this is the second paragraph of its spirit panel text is the wildfire is a long-standing friend of the Dahan. The early slash and burn agriculture, which turned most spirits against them, gave it the best decades it had had in centuries. It later supported the Dahan during the Second Reckoning, backing their threats of reprisal. It doesn't interact with the Dahan often these years, but spares their villages as best it can and fights the invaders in large part for them. So this is one where Wildfire is to me possibly the clearest spirit in the game in support of the Dahan during the First Reckoning.
I mean I expected more of like a Thunder Speaker River Hearth Vigil pie here, where it's just overwhelmingly with.
Yeah. And I mean some of that is that again, I mean, we often think of Wildfire as this high offense, high destruction spirit. It throws blight around, it throws damage around. So I get kind of where you might come from with saying, oh, well, yeah, if there was any kind of invader, Dahan or otherwise, Wildfire would have been blowing them up left and right, kind of in that lightning style. And but I think I feel like again, like I'm going back to the spirit panel, like I feel like Wildfire is more strongly defined in terms of its history than most of the spirits are.
Well, and I
So
think that another thing to remember here is that obviously you and I have this passion for lore. That's why you and I are sitting down making a lore video. A lot of the people who voted on, Reddit or even the Discord haven't even necessarily read the back of the spirit panels and they're just going off of vibes. And if
yeah,
you're just
and that's
going
fair.
off like the front of the panel and the gameplay and those vibes, I can very much see where you would get this, feeling of against the Dahan or this feeling of like, I'm just going to burn everything, if you just are going off that feeling.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's definitely one where I think Wildfire mechanically maybe doesn't show as strongly its lore perspective on the Dahan. Because the main thing you have is you push the Dahan when you put presence in their lands. Oh, right, you don't burn their villages, you help them move on. But like you're still pushing them out of their lands. Like it still feels very aggressive in some ways.
Yeah. So I think that's where a lot of people kind of got that idea and I don't know, but I think that it's just a lot of vibes based voting when it
Yeah.
comes to Heart of the Wildfire.
Which, to be fair, there's what 37 or no 30. I always mix up. Is it 31 or 37 of spirits versus aspects? Um, but there's a bunch of these spirits, and like it kind of makes sense that you would have sort of this wide variety of there's so many that you're trying to answer for. You're halfway through the filling out the poll and you're like, I'm just going to go on vibes at this point and not go and read another spirit panel.
Spirit voting fatigue.
Spirit voting fatigue. Spirit voting fatigue. um Speaking of fatigue, should we talk about Serpent?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
I think I'm kind of in this green category personally. If they were just like, I think like, 100 years after the first reckoning, Snake woke up and was kind of like, wait, what happened?
Yeah, that sounds right to me. No, I very much agree with this chart. Like the idea of, oh, they're neutral or they slept through it, one of those two. So depending on how much you decided to click on other and type out your actual thoughts versus just click neutral and move on. Like I think this makes total sense to me.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Is probably a lot more of this chart is a lot of these neutrals are probably like, I'm clicking neutral because they slept through it, and I'm just not going to type that out.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I think this makes sense. Serpent is sort of this giant entity that we talk about, like the size of spirits. Some where little spirits are too small to make many effects. Giant spirits are too big to actually work on the right time scale, or if they did anything, they would destroy the island. Serpent is about as close to that giant spirit as any of the playable spirits in the game get. Is a
yeah,
fully woken serpent doing snake quakes, 12 energy, 5 card plays. Serpent is supposed to be this behemoth. Not no disrespect meant to Emberide Behemoth, but is supposed to be this gigantic creature that is not on the island, but is the island almost.
yeah,
So
yeah. No, I full on agree with this chart.
yeah, I think it's a good one. Um, let's I think let's hop on to the next one though. Let's
Yeah, let's move on.
we'll get into Jagged Earth
So
spirits.
yeah, so Volcano is the only spirit in the entire game that not a single person said would have sided with the Dahan. No one
I
thought
love
that.
that.
So, I
Excuse me.
mean, that says a lot, like, about how people view Volcano.
Yeah, it does, and I think it kind of makes sense. Like, I even pulled up Volcano as an example earlier in this, trying to come up with someone that wouldn't do anything for the Dahan, or would just be into destruction everywhere. And I guess the community kind of agrees.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, my thing is like, I guess the thing that gets me is like, even Ocean, like someone out there thought Ocean was a nice enough guy to help the Dahan if they were around,
I
but
mean, they
not
they
Volcano.
they do have Tidal Moon, which is kind of nice. But yeah,
That's
yeah,
so. I mean, it appears, to be fair, the spirit panels say it doesn't dislike humans per se. It just doesn't have anything, like, it doesn't care about, like, it has nothing to do with them. Um,
yeah. I
but
I think that makes sense.
yeah, no, it makes sense. Let's pop over to Stone with a
Yeah.
big fat neutral pie chart right here.
Yeah, I think this makes sense to me. I mean, if we talked about Keeper as the get off your lawn spirit, who nonetheless is going to be respectful of you and keep distance as long as you stay off of its lawn, Stone I feel is the same way.
Yeah, no, I mean Stone. Everything about Stone is it's stubborn. It's, I could see it just Stone is Stone. It's just kind of there, unchanging. I can and Stone doesn't care about Blight. Like, that's its big gameplay mechanic. So I could definitely Stone say like, Blight, who cares? Like, I'm here, I'll exist. It's fine.
Yeah, as I will endure, the island will endure, the spirits will endure. This conflict is just a drop in the bucket.
Yeah. So not a lot to say with Stone. It's pretty cut and dry.
I think that's fair. Yeah. We've got Grinning Trickster, which I think this is this the biggest green pie slice, or was Serpent's bigger? I don't know. It's a large green pie slice,
The
regardless.
largest green pie is a different spirit coming up. I'm
Oh,
not going to
okay,
spoil it,
okay.
but there is one that is bigger. But this is a big pie, and I almost, when I was compiling results, I had almost tucked all those into the neutral category, but I changed my mind, and I'm glad I didn't, because there's the neutral and like I don't care or I'm not taking part, and then there's a lot of people saying like Trickster is like going uh, full Peter Pan with this one and fighting for the pirates and the Indians at the same time,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
kind of like almost maybe keeping the reckoning going a little bit.
yeah. It likes the trouble. It likes the chaos.
So yeah, and then but that said, there's also much larger chunks saying that they were with the Dahan than against the Dahan
And
too.
I think this also gets into a little bit of Second Reckoning lore kind of bleeding into First Reckoning assumptions. Because if memory serves, there's something somewhere. I don't remember if it's on Trickster's lore panel or in the design lore or where, that suggests that Trickster is the one who caused the Second Reckoning by telling the Dahan something that the spirits were trying to keep hidden.
Right. And again, so this is, and again, I mean, I'm trying to. I'll go into again when we do a second reckoning video. I'll go into this more. In my head canon, that what he told them was where to find Bright Thunder Roars.
Oh, oh! Now I'm really excited about this theory.
I mean, again, this just it's one of like, and again, I have like for each of these events, I have like 1,000, like a
Yeah,
bunch
yeah,
of different timelines that I like. This is one of them that I have. So, and we can kind of go more, that's Second Reckoning, so
yeah,
we
yeah.
won't go too deep into it
We'll
now.
dig into that more later, I'm sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think this is a really cool pie chart. I really like that Trickster. No, there's not a consensus agreement here. Is
it
35%
feels
is the
very
plurality?
trickstery.
Yeah, it feels very trickstery. So
So
I like this one a lot. And
yeah,
then, but then Many Minds Move is one. This one is very even in some ways, like almost half neutral and then a quarter each with and against.
yeah, it's very very close to this neutral and then this with and against. I'm trying to remember how because again, there's a few spirits. I know, like general lore, there's a few spirits that I have this very kind of strong personal head canon for that I try to separate from things like this. So I'm trying to remember how I personally voted. Um, but it kind of makes sense, right? If you think of um, many minds as kind of a hive mind spirit, humans are just essentially another potential set of minds.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. This is one where it kind of reminds me of Bringer, honestly, where it's this idea of the many minds, hive mind kind of thing is so alien to our human experience of the world that neither of us understand each other very well.
Well, and so it's actually interesting. So it does talk about on the spirit panel that it has shown no ability or inclination to integrate them into itself. So
Okay.
it has not shown the ability or desire um, to actually hive mind humans, um, which is interesting, right? Because you would think. I'm trying to remember the part of the brain. Like I have this, but we have the blah blah blah. There's the front part of the brain. My like I have like a sciencey explanation for that, which is like because humans have that. I'm trying to remember what it's called, and I feel so stupid that I can't right now. But the kind of the front part of our brain that is responsible for the higher level thinking that humans and maybe dolphins and orcas and other things can do. My theory is that perhaps that like higher level thinking part of the brain prevents many minds from being able to do that.
I wonder.
Or like,
I'm curious if how much it's that versus like just. Well, yeah, yeah. No, no, that makes sense. I get. I get. I think I get where you're coming from.
yeah. Um, this is one of the spirits where if I were to write a Spirit Island fan fiction novel, I would change that part of the lore for myself. Um, just because we have referenced the cultist wars, right?
Yeah, the servant cults. I
Yeah,
think.
the servant cults. In my head canon, or I won't say head, like I like to think that there's another version of the island where many minds can integrate humans, and
Mm.
that's what sparks off the servant cult. Is like it starts integrating humans, and then they start worshiping many minds. Like if I were to write like a short story fan fiction on an alternate universe, that's would be like my first one personally.
This is like
But
Invasion of the Body Snatchers, but
kind of, yeah.
but many minds edition.
But I mean, per official lore, he doesn't integrate humans. Doesn't really care that much about humans. I think neutral makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. All right, let's go on to the next one. We've got shifting memory of ages. Now, this is another one where I think you'd put an asterisk on this one, because with was pretty close to neutral, and
With
very
was
few against votes.
yeah, with when it had a lot of written in a lot of the written in comments. This was a weird one because like I tried to integrate those written in comments. A lot of the written in comments were worded kind of worded in ways that it could have been neutral or with. Um, so it was there was a couple more than one where I was like I'm not really sure where to go with this one. They seemed more neutral, so I tucked them in there, but it was pretty close to with. How do you feel about this chart, Kalen?
I kind of like it. I'm more on the neutral side of shifting memory of ages, but that's kind of again sort of personal headcanon. This idea that they go through cycles is that they may well not have been in a state where they could pay attention to the humans when the Dahan arrived. And so the idea of them being neutral, because, oh, maybe they were too big or too small at the time, just clicks for me. I don't know that it's kind of a weird thing because memory is supposed to be this ancient spirit that has seen everything, seen it all, kind of a thing. And so you might think that they would have seen humans in some capacity somehow before in a way that other spirits might not have. And that could lead them to be more defensive, or it could lead them to be more like, oh, we need to be harmonious with these things, or else bad stuff is going to happen. And I guess it's one where I feel like neutral makes the most sense to me, just almost as a cop out of like I don't feel like I could commit towards putting them in either of the other buckets.
I could see that. I coming from a where potentially we're getting these results. Mentor aspect, right? Like just hearing mentor aspect makes you think nice guy to
Yeah.
me.
Well, but and
Uh,
they also have share secrets of survival. Like they're one of the few spirits that has a destroy fewer Dahan effect just built into their kit.
yeah, I can see why where both these sides of the pie chart come from. I'm kind of with you in that it really I guess it depends. Like it's a big thing. I think that had they just, hacked off an arm to become a smaller spirit and could interact with the Dahan, they're probably with the Dahan. If they're in those later stages where they're still big, maybe they're kind of snaking it and they don't even notice the Dahan until it's over.
Yeah.
I could see both.
And yeah, I mean, I can even a little bit see the against category here. The oh, this is gonna go badly, and it doesn't go as badly because it's the Dahan versus like what's gonna happen later with the invaders.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't. I guess I just don't feel that strongly on this one, but I do enjoy the result that it has.
Yeah. All right.
All right, now we've got some more
Frog.
hostile things.
Yeah. A lot. Yeah. A few. Lure makes sense to me. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I think I'm in the. I don't know that I really have any comment on this. This just makes sense to me.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's one thing is like I guess the only comment I would say here is, and it's been a minute since I've read this like rule, like it it does, or the panel it does. Lure likes humans. Like I remember that being explicitly stated on the panel. Like humans don't necessarily like or enjoy the way it likes them, but it does like humans. And I think my question here is how much of lure was just lure doing its lure thing very similar to sharp fangs, and how
Yeah,
much
Yeah.
is actual hostility. Like lure is just it's a spirit with this giant lure on its head. Things are going to be lured to it. Sometimes maybe bad things happen because that's the way of nature. I don't know.
Yeah, and I think that lure, if Fangs is a spirit of the hunt, lure is a spirit of the opposite of society. It's a spirit of the wild. Is it's about this more base nature. Like it isn't necessarily going to like hunt and consume people, but it is going to draw them away from the social structures that they're trying to impose on the world.
Yeah.
And so I think against makes sense in that whether or not they actually were thinking, oh, I need to stop these humans. It's just a, oh, these humans are doing something antithetical to my nature. I'm going to follow my nature.
Yeah. Oh.
So yeah, I I don't know that I have too many strong comments on it other than that.
Yeah, this is
So
one where I don't have a lot to say, to be honest.
yeah, I have more to say about the next one, Shroud of Silent
Uh,
Mist.
I'm gonna let you open up with it then, because this is Shroud is one that I don't have a lot to say on Shroud, so I'm gonna let you
Oh,
talk about it.
I am solidly in that tiny little green section of did not exist.
Okay, let's hear it
Which
then.
is, well, and this is maybe a little unfair, but so the Shroud Spirit panel says some legends say Shroud of Silent Mist came from the final breath of a Dahan spirit speaker who spoke too freely of secrets entrusted to him, for which his soul form was afflicted with a death-bringing curse. Others claim it was born from the legends and tales, rather than from any actual person, for the story of Kadura shows that human and spirit do not so readily transform into each other. Now, those like two sentences have so much fun stuff in them for me, but the main takeaway for this is that there's a very strong belief, at least among the Dahan, that Shroud wasn't really around, or at least didn't care yet when they were there earlier, because they view it as having come into existence while they were already on the island.
Yes.
So maybe not.
Um.
It's not a did not exist, but either did not exist or was not in a position to take a side yet.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on that. I think that I do agree that it is possible. And again, so these are again they're the Han legends,
Yeah.
right? Um. That like spirit and human do not so readily transform into each other. Again, there is a lot of lore there, not so much necessarily related to the first reckoning lore, just shroud in general lore. Um and we could have, I mean, so there's two ways to think about this as far as first reckoning. I do kind of agree as far as first reckoning that shroud probably wasn't in any capacity to interact, right? Because it's either shroud could either be a human or something that had kind of halfway turned into a spirit, or another way to look at this, um, which is kind of the way I've kind of looked at it, is almost like a thunder speaker gone wrong.
Mm. Okay.
Um, Again, not really. That's this more just shroud lore than first reckoning lore, because it says, it says the story of Kadura shows that human and spirit do not so readily transform into each other. Thunder speaker did it relatively successfully doesn't mean another spirit's going to achieve the same effect.
Now I almost want to push back on that a little bit, and just I don't think Thunder Speaker transforms into a human. I think Thunder Speaker wears the clothing of humanity,
See,
or
I okay, so
wears
you're right
human
there.
form. Like it's not that Thunder Speaker becomes a human. It's that Thunder Speaker is a spirit
Yes,
who
that is true,
emulates a
and you're right
human.
there. You're right there. I guess I'm just saying, may maybe not like Thunder Speaker, but maybe Shroud tried to go further than Thunder Speaker.
Sure.
I'm just like it implies that it could have gone. It could be an either way transformation, and we're not sure which. But I agree as far as the first reckoning, which is what we're here to talk about. I do agree that I was in that green. I voted green for sure out of Silent Mist.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely an interesting one, and I Yeah, this is one of those where I'm like, I have all these thoughts about that I want to save for like a later discussion about Shroud that are
Yeah,
not so relevant to the First Reckoning itself. So, um, should we talk Vengeance?
let's talk vengeance.
All right, this is another heavily against one. I'm actually interested at the chunk of people who said with. I mean,
Yeah,
Vengeance kind of suggests Vengeance's lore on its panel. I think kind of suggests that it can be called to action by humans in, but in sort of the summoning an eldritch abomination that ends up killing everyone kind of way.
yeah. I mean, I think that like it's far. I think as far as that, it's kind of like uh the MAD strategy, right? Of like this is a mutually assured. Like we know if we use this, we know we're getting collateral.
Yeah,
Like, is what we need to fight so dire that we're gonna call upon vengeance?
yeah, yeah. Uh,
Um, so you know,
yeah,
it's one of those things that I agree. I mean, I guess I would say I could have seen the neutral being a bit bigger. I think vengeance is one of those like it spreads disease, but
yeah. I mean, I'm pretty solidly in the against here. Like I feel like First Reckoning Vengeance to me would just be, oh, these people are coming and blighting. Well, I'm gonna go blight them, kind of a thing.
I could see that. I mean, I think I personally I like the idea of like didn't exist slash asleep. Like the spirits are like, hey, we want to get these Dahan off the island. Nobody tell vengeance,
I
kind of things.
I do like that. I that is a fun way to look at it. Yeah,
So yeah, I mean, I don't think there's a lot more to say on vengeance.
yeah.
It makes sense.
I think it makes sense. Yeah. All right, we've got. Oh, now we're on to some weird ones.
So this is the biggest chunk of green,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
which is Starlight, uh, which
I.
is
I.
again interesting and gives the kind of voting with vibes feel thing. I'm pretty sure. I don't remember if it says on the panel. I mean, obviously, the story of for those watching who might not know the lore, the story of Starlight is it kind of fell from the sky, and then it would have kind of just dissolved into nothing when it arrived. Um, so no, no, it does say on the panel. That's right.
Yeah.
Have a bullet. This one arrived after the invaders started to spread.
so so this would and then fragile and knew it was saved from dissolution by stones unyielding
Yeah.
defiance,
So
and
yeah.
in
So no, it
gratitude
does.
fights the invaders even as it seeks to define itself.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes sense. It was did not exist.
Yeah,
You know.
I saw. I think did not exist is to me the closest to
I mean,
canon that we're gonna get on this one.
yeah. So again, though, you have that one. There's like five people that were like, no, he hated the Han from like day one.
I mean, Starlight it does. Starlight is can seek a form of destruction. Like that is like that's part of what's so cool about Starlight as a spirit is just that they can be anything. They lock into a form as they grow, but they start with sort of this unlimited potential to go in different directions.
Yeah. I just think it's there's a couple where it's just funny where you have that like one sliver of like, nope, that guy.
Yeah, yeah, no, we don't like the Dahan here, kind of a thing. All
All right.
right, fractured days split the sky.
I mean, it all of them are correct.
Yes, I think the multiple timelines one probably wins there. in some
Yeah.
ways. I think neutral makes the most sense to me here if I have to like actually pick a category, just because
Yeah.
fractured seems so
And again,
weird, out alien.
I think this is what you had pointed out earlier, and we had talked about with one of the other some of the other spirits where like a lot of people were probably thinking multiple timelines, so all of them, and just clicked the neutral button
Yeah,
without specifying that. So it's probably mostly like this green chunk is probably much bigger than is actual the green chunk.
yeah,
But still, it is interesting. Like if you take away and just look at the blue and the red, like if you're going through that like Infinity War kind of like we're searching through the timelines, most people would say in most of the timelines it joins Dahan, and in fewer of the timelines it goes against them.
yeah. I think that's fair. And I mean, some of it to me is that like in the timelines where fractured is against the Dahan, maybe they don't arrive at the island at all. Like
Yeah,
maybe they sail over to the island in Horizons or something, or some other island instead. And so it's the way that fractured is against the Dahan at times is very different than the way a different spirit would be against the Dahan.
yeah, I like that. So
All right. We got another sort of 50-25-25 one coming up here with Downpour.
yeah, I mean downpour. I mean, I can see the neutral. It makes sense. The neutral makes sense. Downpour is downpour.
Yeah. And Downpour is also like a very negative blight spirit, if that makes sense. Like it's one where
Yes.
like even if the invaders are showing up and causing blight, Downpour's like, okay, I'll just fix it.
Yeah.
Um I don't know. This is one where I don't really have a strong opinion. I
I
mean,
did
yeah.
I feel the same. I Neutral makes sense to me.
Yeah. I think I'm in the same bucket as you on that. So I do like this next one a lot though, with Finder of Paths Unseen.
So, Finder of Paths Unseen, ironically, not, which we'll see on the next page, but the only spirit with no against votes.
Oh wow, yeah.
The only one. So a small percentage of people said that it didn't exist yet. A few people said neutral, and then most people were like, "Yeah, no, it was just making portals left and right for them." you know?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, this is one where I do feel like Finder is very harmonious with the Dahan in the present day again, and so this makes total sense to me that a lot of people would go for with.
Yeah,
I I maybe need to go and like quick reread Finder's spirit panel again, because I feel like I don't actually remember what Finder does. Like they talk about it being sort of this farrier of the dead, kind of like ferrying people across the river Styx kind of thing. But I don't know. It's
yeah.
it seems so weird.
Well, and I want to say, what is it like? One of this, yeah, like, and it's also. I remember, it's been a while since I read the panel. It's like what its paths are is even kind of like if you go into like does it make the paths? Does it find the paths? How is it like does it move through space time? Like it's a very enigmatic spirit still. It's not like a straightforward like, oh, look at this sandy trail, let's go this way, kind of spirits.
Yeah.
So, but I don't have a lot more to say. It makes sense. They are a very Dahan harmonious spirit. It makes sense that they would at least very quickly side with the Dahan in the first reckoning.
Yeah. I think that's fair.
So
I'm clicking us over to the one that is shocking that there's an against vote.
right, I say there's the like the again the, like that one guy that's like, nope, Hearth Vigil hated those Dahan at first. Um,
I gotta imagine there's some reason for that. I don't I'm inclined to disbelieve that it's just like a misclick or something. But I cannot think of anything about it. anything that would
I
suggest
mean,
it.
like, I mean, I don't want to be that guy, but like, I almost feel like it's like a couple trolls.
Maybe, but then why
You
didn't they
know,
troll on Finder? Like, I don't know.
that's true. You know, but I don't know. I mean, maybe they had some reason. You know, um, well, but and again, so this is one I do know a little more about it. You know, without looking at the panel, it said that its aid was first sought during the servant cults.
Yeah. So
So
maybe it wasn't so aligned with the Dahan initially, but
yeah,
much later on it became what it is today.
right. So it's one of those things where I mean, which to me would maybe put it like I mean, I definitely don't think it didn't exist. Maybe it didn't exist in the current aspect because it talks about how it changes to become more of a guardian. Um, so I could see it like maybe it existed in a slightly different form. I would have said maybe neutral personally, like not against the Dahan, but it wasn't really actively guarding them like it is now until the servant cults, which we're assuming have to do with the Dahan because it helped the Dahan and the servant cults.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. The spirit panel says something about due to the threat of mass poisonings. So, uh, yeah, that'll be something for a for a future
for,
discussion, I think.
yeah, that's something for a different video.
Yeah. Um. Yeah, I think that's everything I've got on Hearth Vigil. I don't know. I don't know
Yeah,
that I have
let's.
anything else to think about with it.
I mean, Hearth Vigil is one of those straightforward spirits. You know, not a lot to talk about.
It's your
Let's jump
friendly
over to
dog.
Behemoth.
Yeah, Behemoth. This one actually surprises me a little bit. Um, I would have expected more people to go for width on Embride Behemoth. Just
Okay.
because, or maybe what I'm thinking of is more neutral. I don't know. The like I feel like Behemoth is this thing where it's kind of in that in the same category to me as the as Keeper, as in like Behemoth is this spirit that's in many places, but it has this concentrated locus of power that you can camp out on and like hang out with, and you just don't want to be there when it's walking around because it's going to accidentally step on you.
Yeah. Um, I think that where people maybe might have gotten this, it does, you know, it does mention like if you bother it, fire will kindle in its eyes and it will kind of like go on a rampage, which I could
Yeah,
see. But to me, that's still kind of a neutral rampage,
yeah.
personally. Like, oh, you accidentally made it stub its toe and now it's charging wildly across the landscape. You
It's
know?
yeah, or we're the mosquito that bit it, and so it's swatting us, kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
something like that. I kind of like it's a neutral aggression to me
Yeah,
personally.
I think against still makes sense to me as being the majority one here, but like against or neutral, yeah, either one kind of works for me.
I definitely agree that I agree with the smaller width percentage. I don't really see it taking to, you know, champion the Dahan's cause anytime soon.
Yeah,
You want to talk roots?
let's talk roots. What's this protected no help thing?
So like a lot of people put in that like and I think they're thinking of it from like a ravaging conflict sort of way of like it didn't actively stand up for the spirits or like it's not gonna go slug it out with Sun, you know, to keep Dahan alive, but it will if they're within its shelter, it will give them protection.
Okay, yeah,
Is kind of what people were saying is like it's gonna if the Dahan come to it and seek aid, it will offer protection, but it's not going out to fight the bigger fight on their behalf.
sure, sure. Yeah, this is one that definitely feels more neutral to me. I mean, again, kind of the sort of the downpour thing of where Roots is really good at like stopping blight and curing blight, and well, maybe not so much curing blight, but stopping blight, and just this idea of like, oh, there's humans here now and they're doing things. Oh well, we're fine.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I don't know.
um,
It's one where I sort of see almost any of these options as reasonable. I don't think I think I would probably I think I'm pretty much in the neutral bucket for the most part, but I just I could see waffling towards the others as well.
and so this is the one thing I will say about this is that this is one of the things that the extended design lore actually kind of talks a little more about the first reckoning than a lot of the other spirits.
Okay,
And
I'm not sure if I've
so,
read that one then. I
yeah,
don't remember
so
it well enough.
this one talks about how, like, when the first reckoning ends, the spirits wanted to keep track of the Dahan, and so Towering Roots was one of the, like, kind of leaders in this track the Dahan initiative post first reckoning and keep tabs on them. But it also, this is one of the spirit panels where it actually says um, many local spirits never got involved in the first, like, reckoning, not even counting the vast numbers of spirits who weren't even close enough to be involved. So it's just, this is like the one, like, lore panel that says, like, most of the spirits were neutral or uninvolved.
Yeah,
So
yeah. That's actually
all
really
right.
cool. Yeah, I like that it has that just as a an extra bit of actual information that we can work on instead of just speculation.
Yeah,
Um, so shall we talk bodies?
let's talk it. Um
I
I
I'm
mean,
I'm surprised that this one is so different than what Shadows was,
yeah,
given how closely I associate those two spirits in my head.
yeah. And I agree with that. Like, Shadows, we had this, more than half the community says Shadows is with the Dahan. And then you come back down here to Breath of Darkness, and most people are saying they're either against the Dahan, neutral. You have again that small percentage of people who specifically said, like, they're abducting people, but they're not trying to hurt them. They're just kind of doing their thing
Yeah,
of abducting people. So I would have said, I mean, I personally think that, because to me, Shadows and Darkness are kind of just, they're those more alien presences. They're very hard for humans to understand. Maybe I would have gone a more neutral route personally. Um, I think, again, if you're going off vibes and gameplay experience, I could see why you would think against.
yeah. I'm not quite in the same boat. I think, but I think neutral is where I land regardless. I just it's one where so much of this to me is tied up in how much was Breath of Darkness its own spirit versus an aspect of a different spirit that split into Breath of Darkness or Shadows later on or some other thing entirely. It's just this is one of the intentionally more mysterious and strange spirits. And so it's hard for me to really imagine too much about their motives.
That's true. And I agree with you there. I will point out, though, as far as, if you haven't read the lore, if you don't know these things, because I mean, I play games on Discord, and I talk about this all the time. People are like, "Wait, what? This is a potential aspect?" It's, yeah. So if you're just looking at the art of Breath of Darkness down your spine,
Yeah, and it's just this looming thing behind a poor
like, it's this looming
unfortunate
thing, but it's
explorer.
like, it looks almost like the xenomorph queen from Alien.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like the art itself says this thing wants to murder humans, and so I can get this result from that alone, almost.
Yeah. Yeah. That's I think that's totally fair.
Do we want to move on?
Yeah, let's hop on. Oh, here's Vital Strength of the Earth, who
I say late to the party.
got thrown in near the end. This is one that I think actually makes a lot of sense to me, to have them in with as the majority. just because
Yeah,
vital or base not base Earth, but Earth in general seems like one of the more Dahan friendly spirits. Um, I
I
don't know.
agree with that.
I could see the neutral argument if like maybe you think that they were too slow to do anything during the first reckoning and they sort of just stayed out of it. But like present day Earth is a big fan of the Dahan, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
So, um, I agree with this personally. I mean, personally, I would have probably put. I almost I expected a bigger blue chunk from Earth myself, but
okay. Yeah, I don't know. It is there. 13% on against is a little surprising to me that it's that high. But I guess it's not crazy. Earth doesn't like blight, even if it can stop it pretty effectively. But
that is that is true. Earth is not a big blight spirit. It doesn't like blight. So
yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, I don't know. It's hard for me to think about it too much because again, so much of my sense of Earth is I think tied up in like the present day or time of game state of the spirit that it's hard for me to think about what they some of these spirits like I feel like it's really easy to say oh well they definitely did this in the first reckoning. I feel that way, and this one I'm really uncertain.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I don't know.
The next one,
Yeah, Wandering Voice.
one of my favorite spirits in the game, not to play. I've actually never played a game with it. Lore-wise, one of my favorite spirits in the game. Um, so obviously this big chunk of against, this big chunk of neutral, and then I like the 10% of it's people saying it still calls all living things to die at this point.
Yeah,
Um, I'm not sure I agree with it being the lore, as far as I can remember, um, doesn't explicitly like it states that you know three spirits basically like sundered calls all living things to die's voice and kind of cut down its power when it was just kind of going on this let's see how much I can destroy it once spree. It doesn't say when that happened, whether that was before or after the Dahan. I like to think that it personally, I like to think that it happened before the Dahan got there. Um, but again, that's just a personal thing.
yeah.
I don't,
I
you know, I'm not sure personally that the Dahan would have survived it still being calls all living things to die necessarily.
I actually kind of wonder. This is one where I'm actually kind of aligning more with the very small sliver of blue now that I'm thinking about it more. Just because if calls all living things to die is this spirit of destruction, it might not actually care about the blight. Like if it was still calls all living things to die, or it still had some of its nature, perhaps it's a spirit that says, "Nah, this is great. I like what the Dahan are doing here with slashing and burning. Like we want this." Kind of maybe not in quite the same sense as wildfire, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean it's a very interesting spirit, and again, if we go into, I'm sure we'll make another video where we kind of do some deep dive into spirits personally. We could talk more about them then. It's hard to know what what motivates voice.
Yeah,
And so it's hard to say exactly where I can't say for sure that I know exactly where I fit within this just because there's so many ways to interpret voice.
yeah.
So,
I think that's fair. And then again, this is something that let's make a note of it, and we'll try to revisit it maybe.
yeah.
Um,
Sun.
Sun. Yeah, no, this makes sense to me. I don't know.
Yeah, this makes sense. Again, you got that one guy. He's like, no, he was like, hey, you guys, let's get some suntans going. You know, like
Yeah.
I'll illuminate your picnics. You know, you have the one guy that's kind of um, right there. Uh, then you have obviously a kind of a trickster thing here, but like a anti-trickster of like he just hates everybody and is actively trying to murder everybody. Um,
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's this big conflict with Relentless Gaze later on in the timeline, sort of, but it doesn't. It seems to me that that could have happened many times potentially. Is that you had years of drought and heavy sunlight focused on the island, and Sun would have been regularly in conflict with other spirits.
yeah, I mean, I think that yeah, Sun was always well, and it does talk about in the design lore. It does talk about that like Sun wasn't always like everyone kind of hears about the like oh it had this big fight like a lot of the it had this big fight with shadow slicker like flame, both of them come out weaker during that fight. It destroys like the spirits of the moon and night at the same time. But it does say in the design lore that like this relentless gaze of the sun wasn't always like that. Something happened that swelled its pride.
Hmm. Interesting.
So before and then like it does talk like some Dahan figured out ways to distract it and buy respite, whatever, but something happened, you know um like and then you have things these are things for other. Again, Sun is another, like there's a lot of lore we could go into for Sun that's not First Reckoning stuff,
Yeah.
but what we know is that what we could say is that kind of super proud Sun that existed then might not have existed when the Dahan first arrived.
Yeah. I think that,
So
like, again, if we're going off vibes, this just totally makes sense. If
yeah,
we're trying to dig into it, we start getting some scope creep.
right. And that's the thing is to remember with all of these is like we're interpreting it from people with extensive lore knowledge, and every community member was invited. Like you didn't need extensive lore to
Yeah,
take the quiz.
there's no test or qualification
Yeah.
required to
So
cast a vote here, and we again, we don't want to be like bashing anyone's vote or saying that you were wrong. We like this is
oh no, and like I said, even if something like just because it says it on this, like I said, many minds doesn't integrate with humans, and in my mind, it totally did personally. Like I'm not here to say what anyone says is wrong in any way.
yeah.
Wounded Waters bleeding.
I mean, I think the still peace waters thing makes sense to me, but I don't know that that necessarily
So the still
changes
piece. So
which what it would have done at the time.
that's true. So it is still, yeah. So it is still Peace Waters. Like canonically, like the invaders find Peace Waters and build like their
Their slaughterhouse or something
their
nearby, and
slaughterhouses and blight. They build their blight making structures upstream, and that's like so. I think what like by the time we start the game, it's 10 to 8 years in. So Wounded Waters Bleeding is like 10 years old, 8 to 10 years old when the game starts.
yeah,
Peace Waters, I want to say again neutral, right? Like Peace Waters kind of has that vibe of like while you're here, you're fine, you're safe. I will protect you from other spirits. But once you leave, you're on your own.
yeah, yeah. I
Is
I,
is
I
that
think
that's how I see it.
I think that makes sense. I don't know that I have. Yeah, I don't really have too much to add on that. I think you got it.
Yeah. All right, we got one more.
We got one more. Dances up earthquakes.
Neutral. So this one had a lot of like interesting enough. And again, I kind of tucked them into the neutral category of like a lot of people were like it didn't care about the conflict. It just was happy to have people to dance with, you know? So
Yeah.
um
I mean,
but
I, well, sorry, go on.
I was no, I was kind of pausing, so I think let's hear what you had
Okay.
to say.
I was just going to say is that Dances Up Earthquakes to me is one of those that could, in fact, actually be another one of the sort of mediator spirits, where the Dahan are, coming in and starting the slash and burn agriculture, and bad stuff is happening, and they're starting to get pushback from the spirits. And Dances Up Earthquakes is one of the first that they figure out how to communicate with, maybe. Because if memory serves, some of the ability to communicate with spirits was sort of derived from Dances Up Earthquakes. You've got this idea that what was it? I'm trying to skip through the lore panel here. Uh, maybe am I misremembering this? The Dahan learned long ago that if the land dancer was aware of them, village-wrecking earthquakes became much rarer. Through this, they found that many spirits appreciate and gain power from various patterns of dance and rhythm, in addition to those of line, shape, and word.
You're
Which,
thinking maybe like they kind of learn this from dances, and now they're kind of learning how to appease and capitulate with the spirits.
yeah, and I guess maybe when I read that again, the exact wording of that makes me think that I'm probably wrong. So maybe I'm just getting off on this one in the wrong way. I just it's not like it's maybe it's not so much that dance has taught them how to communicate with spirits as that dance has taught them a new way to communicate with spirits,
Yeah,
and so that probably is later on in the timeline for the Dahan.
yeah. No, and I mean, it could be either way. Um, I definitely think that the neutral slash with slash, I mean, like, it could be as simple as something like, hey, like, here's this thing. I like dancing. Do you guys dance? Oh, you do? Well, then maybe I want to keep you around, so I have someone to dance with, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, the, the- yeah, it's hard to say. I definitely don't see it an against, personally.
I could kind of see it against in that, like all spirits, it's vulnerable to blight. If it sees the blight happening, it's the kind of spirit that could cause an earthquake, which would be terrifying and destructive to the Dahan. So
That is very valid.
I again I don't think that it's necessarily I don't think it falls too strongly in any of the three categories for me, and so I kind of default back to neutral. But I do kind of like the idea that Dances Up Earthquakes was involved in developing communication somehow between the two sides of the conflict.
That is true. The interesting thing when we talk about like developing communication that I always kind of keep in the back of my mind here is that like the Dahan, the Dahan kind of got a bum. Like at the end of the first reckoning, the Dahan kind of had a bum deal. Like it was very apparent, like according to the lore, very one-sided towards, or much more spirit favored outcome.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then like is later kind of brought back up in the second reckoning where the Dahan are kind of like, wait, no, 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 no. Like so, which just to me is interesting. Like if even if these spirits are brokering peace, they're still kind of holding out on the Dahan a little bit to
yeah,
some extent at first.
for sure. So yeah, I think that I think that tracks. I like it's definitely something where the second reckoning happens for a reason. We can debate about what that reason is, but it is something that happens after the spirits or the Dahan realized that the spirits were not fully open with them the whole time. So,
Yeah,
all
but
right.
so that I mean that is how the community as a general kind of in general feels about how the spirits felt about the Dawn during the first reckoning.
Yeah. There's a lot there, so if you're still with us, I really appreciate it. um, we're almost 2 hours into this now, and so this is I think really cool. I'm really looking forward to seeing if we can do more of these in the future, see if we can get, feedback on things like the Second Reckoning, things like the servant cults, things like, just why are the Dahan interested or not interested in having a third reckoning, that kind of thing. So, but yeah, um, otherwise, we mentioned a few times we want to do more of these lore videos. If that's something you'd be interested in, definitely let us know on YouTube comments. Let us know on Discord. We're both pretty active on the Second Wave Discord, and I've got a Discord in the link in the comments below that you can go on and just give us feedback. And otherwise, I don't know. Do you have anything else, Caveman?
No, I think we kind of hit it. I think you kind of hit it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for watching. We really appreciate you being with us for this, and tell us why we're wrong. Tell us why we're right.
Right.
We want to know. We want to discuss this. We want to argue about it. Like that's that's why we're recording this. Is we think this is
No,
cool.
I mean, I definitely will be active in the YouTube comments. Like I want to discuss this more with more people. So definitely happy to hear it.
All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.